No,
No.
no, but I can see you. Good evening and welcome to the Grace Talk. I am Gloria Godson. Thank you for joining us today. The 2020 elections is next week. Over 56 million Americans have already voted in this election. Here at the Grace Talk, we have a commitment to bring you strong, credible local candidates who are running here in Delaware. My guest today is Steve Washington, who is a candidate for State Senate District 1. Steve, welcome to the Grace Talk.
Thank you. Good evening.
So, Steve, talk to our audience a little bit. Who is Steve Washington? What do you bring to this platform?
Well, thank you for this opportunity, first and foremost. But as I said earlier, before I start, I want to have order. So I just ask God right now to order my tongue that I may say what's acceptable by you, God. In Jesus' name, amen. But I am
Amen.
thanking you for your platform and thanking you for all that you do in the lives of people. Um, and I don't take that lightly. I think that the more exposure that we have talking about positive, I think what happens that it allows people to catch on to positive energy, and we stop looking at what's negative or what's bothering us, you know. And as you know, and all of us know that there's a lot of things right now that affects our reality, and we have to also understand that our perception is our reality. So the way in which we see things differently, and that's okay. But what I do know is that all of us are really interested in this election that's coming up or coming about, because we have a lot of things in common, and then we have a lot of things that we don't have in common with people that may be in positions that hold our trust. And I don't think that if these people held our trust, we wouldn't have such meetings to talk about how we can make life better for everyone. But anyway, to tell you a little bit about myself, I'm a little Wilmington, Delaware guy, born on the west side of Wilmington, Delaware, in the early 1960s, 1963 to be exact. So if you want to know my place of birth, that was Wilmington General Hospital. Some of you younger folk may not know about the Wilmington General Hospital, but it used to be across the street from Bayard Middle School. At any rate, being born and reared in Wilmington, Delaware, growing up under a dad and a mother until seventh grade when they divorced, I had it pretty good, and I understood how we persevered through our struggles. And that's one of the things that I've done all my life. I was able to persevere in spite of the way things look, you know. And what's happening with me in my life, it causes me to run for such a position, such as State Senator District 1. So some of the things I did from early childhood is that every time I was in school, I was always a leader since elementary school, middle school, high school, college. I was always like in elementary school, I was the class president when I was sixth grade. When I was in middle school, I was the class president. When I went to Wilmington High School in the ninth grade, I was the class president. And when I was bussed out to McCain High School, because we were bussed, I was the vice president of the SGA, and that's Student Government Association. So this is not new to me, leadership, um, and it has prepared me for such a position. I went to Norfolk State University, which is an HBCU, and HBCUs, for you all don't know, is Historical Black Colleges and Universities. I was the uh, public direct, the director of um, in student government of the Public Relations Committee. So forgive me, sometimes words will get stuck, but that just shows you my human side. But at any rate, also played basketball, college basketball at Norfolk State, which also in terms helps you with leadership and friendship, and it allows you to do teamwork. So what I do understand and know about leadership, it does take teamwork to make, as they say, the dream work. Um, So from that, it just led on to me working for the city of Wilmington after Norfolk State University as the payroll person for human resources. And then they created a position for me up in public works, where I then coordinated the timekeeper system by Kronos. By the way, this is in 1989, 90, 91, 90, 88, 89, 91, 92. So what happened is that they still use that timekeeper system for the city of Wilmington that was created back there in 1992. So I was a coordinator. And thanks Steve Sue and Bill Turner, those guys that were there in Public Works, for allowing me the opportunity. One thing about me is that whenever there's an opportunity, I try to take advantage of it and do right by the opportunity to help others grow. After working for the city of Wilmington, I left there 4.5 years. So if I did one more year, I would probably have 10, I would have had the, what is it called, tenure, where I could be able to collect money when I retire. So one of these days I'll get back there. But I left the Wilmington, city of Wilmington in 1992 and went into my field, which is education. At Norfolk State University, my degree was in physical education and corrective therapy. So I went on into education in 92, and I had to persevere through schools because, to be honest with you, being a Black male in education, it's hard, and it's almost we're treated badly as Black men in education as opposed to Black men in any field. So perseverance will help you, as it did me. But at any rate, I stayed in education. I've been in education now 28 years. I've received my master's degree from Arcadia University in secondary education and reading. I am currently a special education teacher in the Brandywine School District, where I see that when we talk about curriculum design and all that later, but where I see that there has to be a lot of growth in education, especially for Black and brown people and poverty people. But at any rate, I am still in education currently. And one of the things I like to see is the growth of all people. From my work, from graduating from Norfolk State and going into education, I started and founded the Norfolk State University Alumni Chapter here in Delaware. And I started that chapter because I thought it was necessary for kids who were attending Norfolk State or wanted to attend Norfolk State to have someone or have a group of people that they could come to in need of money or funding for books or scholarships of somehow. But then after I had that, led the Norfolk State Alumni Chapter, as I am currently president, I moved on to the HBCU Delaware Coalition. So I'm the founder and CEO of the HBCU Delaware Coalition nonprofit 501c3. And the reason we organized that organization is simply because I felt that we have one HBCU in Delaware, and that's Delaware State University. So I feel that we have a lot of graduates from every HBCU around the country of people who live here that are alumni. So I figured that we'll start a coalition of alumni that can generate scholarship funding for any student to attend any HBCU throughout the country. And we have stable bank of money for them if they need, for any need that they may have when they're away to school, because I feel like everybody that goes to college should get an opportunity to be successful. I'm currently right now, or I've been appointed from my works to the Wilmington Housing Authority. Oh, let me backtrack. I ran for mayor in 2016 as an independent. But at any rate, because of the work that I put in, I was appointed to the Wilmington Housing Authority as a commissioner. As it stands, I'm going into my 4th year as commissioner and executive secretary of the Wilmington Housing Authority in Wilmington. And because of the work that I've done, I was also appointed to the State Board of Parole. I happen to be the only Black male on the State Board of Parole, which is really interesting because it allows Black men who are coming up on a parole to have a sense of hope. So as far as the parole system is concerned, I see now why I'm appointed to these positions, because of the work I put in and the dedication that I put into our community as a volunteer. And one of the things about me being a volunteer, it makes me passionate about what I do. Um, that's in a nutshell as to what I do. I have earned many awards, such as the Wilmington Delaware, or the City of Wilmington Award in 2018 by the City of Wilmington Mayor and City Council. That was Mayor Mike Pazicki and City Council President Hanifa Shabazz. I also earned an award for the from the 100 what is it, Coalition of 100 Black Women in Pennsylvania, humanitarian award for the works that I do here in Delaware and across the line. So I'm just passionate about seeing success here in Wilmington, Delaware, being born and raised here in a community in which I love. I'm just tired of seeing their lack in people where they're not able to get equal opportunity, or they're not able to grow academically. And we could go into that conversation more so after I finish expressing as to who I am. But I love Wilmington and I love making people happy and having a good time doing what I do. So
Thank
hope I
you,
made
Steve.
sense out of that. Yes, ma'am.
No, you bring a tremendous wealth of experience and a long-standing background in leadership, all the way from sixth grade. You've literally spent the whole of your life in some sort of leadership or another. And you also bring a lot of public service background here in the state of Delaware, in the Housing Authority, and also with the Parole Board, in
Yes.
addition to being a public school teacher for over 20 years. So again, a very strong mix of public service and focus on community. Now, talk to me about your platform. You have a 3-point platform that is very, very interesting, and I think would resonate with our audience. So talk to us about your platform.
Well, as a man who's devoted in our community, I would like to see a lot of people successful in our community. So I decided to run for District 1 state senator. Um, from being in education all of my life, and seeing me after transitioning from the Wilmington Public School District into Red Clay, as desegregation had set in Wilmington, Delaware, it kind of hurt people's hopes and dreams to go to college. And to be honest with you, desegregation was not about lack of resources. Desegregation was about taxes and housing. So a lot of times, instead of having people of color move into the suburban areas where it's a mixed community, they said, no, we're not going to have that. So what we'll do, we'll desegregate the schools so your students could come, or your kids could come to a school in the suburbs, but you can't live in the suburbs. Well, that done a lot of damage to people of color. That done a lot of damage for parents. So really, there was really nothing positive that came out of desegregation, other than for me, allowed me to understand that of the other community, the other races, even the more. So with that in mind, be mindful, this is one of the reasons why I am running for State Senator District 1. So one of the things that I've seen happen in our curriculum design in education is that we operate under a Common Core, and this is a part of my platform, improving public education. I actually should be transforming public education. But at any rate, well, what I see is that we have a curriculum that's designed for a higher order of thought, and it was designed by Bill Gates. As we know, Bill Gates is not a teacher, although he does think with a higher order of thought. So why would he not want everybody else to get that thought pattern? Well, they left out a couple of things, like when we have a higher order of thought, that comes with aging as well, you know. But what his mind was is to make everything fast, you know, try to do math the long way. Well, it was his experiment, and Bill Gates said that that experiment failed. And he said it was a failed experiment and it will hurt students 30 years out. For some reason, we still operate under Common Core. So how does that operate or work with Black and brown communities? It really doesn't. So what happens is that Common Core speaks to the middle and upper middle class of white communities. It doesn't speak to the it doesn't speak to the poverty class. It doesn't speak to Black and brown people that are or struggling with resources. So a lot of them are not reaching that level academically. And then this interest in school is no longer. Common Core math is very, very hard. It's a math called Singapore. And it's like long everything. So long division, long math, long addition, subtraction, multiplication, and what have you. But the students aren't really learning it because it's on a time limit, and they have to get through 2 lessons a period. But at any rate, regarding Common Core, it just hasn't really been helping anyone, and a lot of our students are graduating not able to do long division or math division without a calculator, not able to tell time with an analog clock, not able to even write in cursive, not able to pass a college entry exam. So we're struggling with these things. But one of the things that's happening, there's a lot of students that in my community have lost interest. And you could tell that they lost interest in school because of some of the decisions that they were making out of school, such as riding three-wheel motorcycles or motorbikes up and down the community without no idea that a car hits you, it will hurt, because they're not thinking about what can happen. They're not thinking about what can happen in the future. They're thinking about here and now. So in regards to our Common Core state standards, we will have to design a curriculum. And that's my first piece of legislation that I'm going to craft, is to design a curriculum inclusive of the parents and teachers that speak to the interest of the child. How many of you know that if we speak to the interests of the child, and that child is interested in the subject at hand, he or she will spend more time trying to craft his or her, craft their interest, and do better in that area when they're interested in something. If they're interested in math and learning math, they're going to do better in it. One thing about education is 90% of it is building relationships and growing and growth. A lot of students aren't growing, and they're not looking at the how successful they could be, because they're not growing in education, so they're not interested. So let me say this to you to make it plain. A student, if he's passing math with A's, he's going to have a higher self-esteem. If he's making F's in it and he knows that he's a smart student, he's going to have a lower self-esteem. We have to build on self-esteem with our kids by making it where they can be successful. Secondly, when I speak in terms of education and being on the Wilmington Housing Authority, I've learned that there's lack. And that's why a lot of people are in public housing, because their rent is subsidized by vouchers, where they may only have to spend $10 for rent, and they give them like $900. So they're going to be $910. But they're not talking about how to make education a mandate. So we have to mandate education in public housing, so people get the education where they can go get a job and be able to maintain a job. If you're always giving me, I'm not going to learn anything on my own. So we want to motivate people that are in public housing so they can go out and maintain affordable housing. Here's the deal with affordable housing. We're not teaching finances in school. Let's begin teaching finances in that curriculum design. Let's begin to teach metal shop and wood shop as they did in the old. So these skills, they carry on and they become lifetime skills that you have. So in public housing, it's not happening. So we want to make sure that everyone in public housing is getting an opportunity to become educated, at least at the bare minimum, get a high school diploma so that you can move forward. And sometimes it's hard to get, especially if you don't have accommodations or modifications, which is under an IEP program, which is an individualized education plan. That reminds me, talking about incarceration, many of the people that look like me in jail, or many of the inmates in jail, the unreported data is that there are 65% of our inmates are special ed. I happen to know about special education simply because I'm a special education teacher. An IEP is an individualized education plan where it has goals, where the student can meet goals. There'll be set goals for him to accomplish. So you have accommodations and modifications, okay? In the prison system, unreported data, okay? They are saying that we have special education programs in prison. Well, speaking to the inmates, that's not happening. Okay. So what happens is that they have to take and pass a GED assessment, which is now technology based. So if they don't have accommodations as they did when they were in a regular school before they were incarcerated, if they don't have the accommodations or modifications, they're not able to take and pass that GED assessment. Although they will be programmed for the crime that they committed. Now, think about this. If you special ed or you have a learning disability and you're speaking in terms of what happens before you go to jail, you're not thinking about the magnitude of the crime that you commit. And some of these heinous crimes, yes, it's terrible, but we have to begin to look at the magnitude, but we have to get all kinds of accommodations and goals so these people can reach these goals and then change the mindset. So in the prison system, it's not happening. 65%, 65% of males in the adult prison system are not getting accommodations and modifications. Let me share something else with you. When we speak in terms of the women's prison, do you know that women are not even coming up on parole? I thought I'd share that with you. So now every time we do a commutation or flow down, when we have a parole board hearings, there are women that are not even coming up on parole. So we want to change the dynamics where they get an opportunity to come up on parole. It seems like they have to serve their entire sentence out. That's not fair. Systemic racism is not fair for Black men in jail. Let me share this with you. There could be a Black man with a cocaine charge in the prison, and he was served 33 years. Then you have a white male who has a manslaughter charge, and he served 11 years. So we're talking about the disparities with Black and white and systemic racism that has plagued our system for years. So we need to make that change, and I want to have something to do with that change because God has given me an opportunity to do well. And I practice trying to do well because we all know that practice does enhance perfection. So when I speak in terms of the education system, the public housing, affordable housing system, the parole system, we see how education impacts every area. So I would be great in Dover because I can see out of the lens of our community where I want to help make a difference. And I do it all the time through education, through housing, through public housing, through parole. I thank God for allowing me that opportunity to sit in those three places, or those spaces. It's funny how three is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, but it's just interesting how I get the opportunity to be the only African-American male in the country to be a teacher, to serve on the Wilmington Housing Authority, and serve on the Board of Parole, all at the same time. So that's a blessing from God. So we need to see how valuable I can be in helping our community and making things better for our communities and all communities.
Thank you, Steve. I let you get into all that detail because people needed to hear the experience that you bring, the background that you bring to this candidacy, and what you've already done, the connections that you have with the people that need help in our state, starting from our children in public school, Common Core has failed our children. That curriculum needs to be removed and tossed. Yes. And we need to reenact a new curriculum that is sensitive to the children. I am very, glad to hear that you are focused on parental rights, and that getting the parents involved in making choices regarding their children, parents and teachers, these are the people who are most close to the children and who care the most about the kids. Having them involved in decision making around education is of critical importance, and that is the commitment that you are making to do that. And regarding housing, also providing opportunities for those within the housing to make a commitment towards education so that they can climb out of that hole and not constantly be given fish, but be taught how to fish and equipped on how to be able to get up in life and educate themselves and be able to get gainful employment in the community and be a resource to the community. And lastly, again, for those in prison, looking at those disparities, providing a help to those in prison, both from an educational standpoint and also from the parole board, providing opportunities for them to get the education that they need so that they can truly re-enter society as meaningful citizens and have the opportunity for gainful employment. So this is really kind of a prong approach that you have here to address what I believe are critical issues that are facing this state and facing our communities. Now, Steve, it's hard to believe, but we are coming to the end of our show. Okay. And I would ask you to talk to our audience, people who are listening to you today. What are your key takeaways? What are your messages to our audience? And why should they vote for you? Quickly.
Well, here's the deal. I'm running on a Republican ticket, by the way, and I'm sure this is a nonpartisan platform, but that's okay. A lot of times when we speak in terms of our parties, we're in a blue state, and a lot of times people believe that it's working. But if you notice, for the last 47, 48 years, nothing has changed for Black and brown people in the state of Delaware. We have to, and Einstein said, if you do the same thing the same way over and over again, expecting a different outcome, that's insanity. So we have to really begin to not look at a party, but look at the person. Now, I happen to be running for office as a Republican, but let me make this clear. I am not by any means a Washington Republican. I'm a Republican with the last name Washington. So understand that first and foremost. I believe that I will help our community because first and foremost, I am from the community. I'm 57 years old, so I've been in the community all my life, all of it. And I understand what is harming our community. But what we will not do as Black and brown people, and we should begin to work on this, is providing a way for everyone and to accept us how we are. We have to begin to help each other in spite of how we feel about each other, okay? Because what happens, especially in Black and brown communities, is that anything that comes down from DC, it knocks out Black people and poor people first. Why? Because we are split and divided because of a party, instead of understanding that there is strength and power in numbers. So we have to begin to stand together in spite of how we feel at each other. And then, and only then, when anything hits us as a community, we can stand strong. So that is very, very important. Look at my platform, look at the work I have put in. I know Wilmington, Delaware, Claymont, Delaware, inside out. I even know the Highlands. I know about Bellefonte. I know about these areas because I visit these areas, and not to mention, I teach in Brandywine School District, where District 1 encompasses the district. So I need you to vote for me quickly because it's not going to matter. I need your vote because a vote for me is a win for you. Now, don't get me wrong. Do I know everything about the world? No. But if I don't know, one thing that I'm going to do is make sure I find out. Secondly, what I need for you to do is understand this. With me in Dover, I will includes you in the decision-making processes prior to the decisions being made that affect your lives, not thereafter. A lot of times when you get decisions that are made, you get that thereafter. So I want to make sure that you're included. One of the things I'm going to do too, should I be in Dover, is come up with a text number and have a text that will go out to your phone every time we think about something in legislation, so you could be abreast and know what's going on with that. We have to have Black people or people of color on both sides of the aisle. If we just look at all Democrats and no Republicans, what happens is that there's corruption because it doesn't speak to the whole puzzle. It just speaks to parts. If you want to make it so that the whole puzzle is spoken for, you have to include on both sides of the aisle a number of people that are of color. That's just the bottom line. We're in Wilmington, Delaware. 72% of the Black folk in Delaware are not included. So you vote for Steve Washington for 1st District State Senator and hold me accountable. Because you know why? Because I care about you and I love you. And that's how I feel about me and my family and your family.
Thank you, Steve. We have some comments from Facebook. Linda says, you are an answer to prayer. Christians getting directly involved in our government, schools, and the media. God bless you, and may he make room for your gifts. Amen.
Amen.
He also goes on to say, we don't need political, we need caring people to be in places of leadership. And that's obviously what you bring. A couple of things I want to emphasize before we close today's show, Steve, is that we will hold you accountable. You invited us to hold you accountable, and we will. One of the things I like as well is the fact that you have committed to involve the citizens. You want to be a citizen legislator, that you include the citizens in the decision-making process. Let them know what is going on, let them know what is happening, so that you can solicit and receive input before the legislation. And I also heard that the first thing you're going to do, the first legislation, I heard you, is that you are going to address Common Core. Common Core has failed the children of Delaware, and it needs to be removed immediately. And that's something that we need to do. Michelle says, hi, Steve, glad to see you, Michelle Fowler. So thank you, Steve, for being on our show today. Thank you for sharing your experience, and thank you for your passion around serving our community and your commitment to us in our audience to go to Dover to be a citizen legislator, to stay connected to the citizens in Delaware and to effect meaningful change in 3 key areas: in education, in public housing, and in criminal justice reform. These are critical areas in bad need of help. You also talked about the fact that you're running on a Republican ticket, and that this state has been unfortunately managed for a long time by the Democratic Party. Not because I have anything against the Democratic Party, but because nothing really has changed in Delaware and nothing has been done for the citizens. Many of these areas that have become decrepit have done so under the management of the Democratic Party. So God is at work, and I thank God for people like you rising up and stepping forward to get into the place of leadership. Steve, I plan to vote for you, and I encourage our audience to do the same. And hopefully we will see you in Dover, and Steve, we shall hold you accountable.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you again for joining. We don't have any more comments. Thank you for coming on the Grace Talk. And I look forward to sending you a congratulatory note after the election.
Thank you.
For our audience, thank you for tuning in and joining us. Good night, and may God bless you.